The Dalai Lama is a religious figure in Tibet, said to be the reincarnation of Avalokiteshvara, who is an important deity and the personification of compassion in Buddhism. He, the Dalai Lama, has vowed to be reborn into the world to help all living things. His holiness encourages many things within one's life, from being happy to following human values. The Dalai Lama holds full political power in Tibet ever since the invasion by China in 1950. In 1959, he was forced to flee Tibet due to suppression and has lived in exile since. He has tried to work with the United Nations to adopt democracy in Tibet. In 1922, he finally became successful when the Central Tibetan Administration published guidelines for the constitution of a future and free Tibet. However, Tibet is still not free. Tibetans still suffer from having fewer rights than the Chinese, who are ruled under the same communistic rule. For the last 3 years in a row, the U.S. think tank Freedom House ranked Tibet among the worst places in the world for the denial of freedom. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a document that the United States General Assembly set as the common standard of achievements for all people and nations in December of 1948. It demonstrated fundamental human rights that would and should be universally protected. Robert Francis Kennedy was very devoted to help the human situations overseas and abroad. He traveled to many countries embracing his belief about the basic human rights and political participation. The Dalai Lama is also a fighter for human rights. He believes the promotion of human rights is of utter importance. He says, "We also need to focus on cultivating good human relations, for, regardless of differences in nationality, religious faith, race, or whether people are rich or poor, educated or not, we are all human beings." The Dalai Lama is stressing the point that people are all people. Everyone has feelings. Everyone feels the same things, hears the same things. If people are stuck seeing the differences and not similarities, the world will go nowhere and will never improve. Time says to people around the world, Tenzin Gyatso is not only the greatest and most public advocate for Tibetan rights and the virtues of Tibetan Buddhism, but for interfaith tolerance and peace as well. For decades and from exile since 1959, he has worked to resolve tensions between Tibet and the People's Republic of China. He has managed to work with people all over the world and with China to ensure the human rights of everyone, specifically of his fellow Tibetans, peacefully, being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989. If one's life becomes useful and beneficial for others, then its purpose is fulfilled. I have an immense responsibility and an impossible task, but as long as I carry on with sincere motivation, I become almost immune to these immense difficulties. One way in which many Tibetan monks have interpreted the Dalai Lama's words about making their lives useful and beneficial is through the process of self-immolation, a form of protest seen to be an honor in Tibet. Self-immolation consists of monks lighting themselves on fire, usually in a crowded space, to make the ultimate sacrifice in relation to the hold that China still has on Tibet. As of June 2017, 148 monks have self-immolated as a form of protest. While the Dalai Lama does not necessarily believe that self-immolation is the best thing to do, he does honor those monks who have done it, and strongly believes their sacrifices have helped promote the need for more democracy in Tibet. Outside his residence in Miklodganji, he has tribute with the photos of monks who have self-immolated so that he never forgets the sacrifices they made for the country and for their culture. It has been said that Tibet is going through a cultural genocide, where the traditions that have meant so much to Tibetans for years are being erased and taken from them by the Chinese. Tibetans today are trying their best to make sure that their culture can be preserved for generations to come. His Holiness strives to promote peace in today's world torn by strife and violence. The United States has long since tried to help. In 1998, he received the RFK Human Rights Award when he was at Georgetown University as a keynote speaker. In attendance were Senator Edward Kennedy, Ethel Kennedy, Mrs. Robert F. Kennedy, and Carrie Kennedy Kumo, daughter of Robert Kennedy, who introduced him. He referred to the Kennedys as his old friends and was really happy to have a reunion. The Dalai Lama has met with President Barack Obama 6 times, each time seeming to work towards peace throughout the world, and many times trying not to anger China into cutting relationships with the United States. As they speak truth to power defender, the Dalai Lama brings a powerful, nonviolent challenge to injustice and unbridled totalitarian forces, often perpetrated by government and sometimes not. The Dalai Lama stands for people who cannot stand for themselves. He fights for the little people who are suffering and no one notices. He wants to see a difference specifically for the Tibetan people. He wants them to be free. He wants them to have a voice in their life, and he wants them to not be suppressed and abused.